Recently, I've been doing various videos discussing the future of some amusement parks or making speculation on what roller coaster could be next to be removed. Well, in today's video, I thought, why don't I talk about what I would do if I owned the amusement park? And the park for today will be the one and only Cedar Point. So instead of me speculating about what would be coming to the park, I'm going to give my personal 5-year plan. This isn't speculation or rumors. I will be discussing what I would do over the next 5 years at the park if I had complete control. Since 2019 is already on its way and we know more or less what's coming to the park, I'm not going to talk about this year improvements. Everything that is going to happen will already have been budgeted before me taking over. Also, 2020 is yet another year that I'm going to skip. Whatever the park has planned for their 150th anniversary is already in motion, contracts signed. Since this isn't a speculation video, I'm not going to discuss what I think is coming in 2020 either. With that said, I'm going to start off with 2021. And in this year, I'm going to focus on major improvements to the rides and attractions already in the park. Maybe spruce up the gardens, give some of the fading coasters a new paint job. A major enhancement is I would give Blue Streak a re-tracking. Something that it sorely needs. Really revive this wooden classic coaster. I want people flocking back to this wooden roller coaster. The biggest change I would do is not just retrack Blue Streak, but give Magnum XL 200 a good retracking. Currently, Magnum is one of the park's highest capacity attractions. It's still a great ride and is a symbol to the modern era of roller coasters. Unfortunately, this ride isn't the smoothest. In fact, it's quite rough, especially depending on where you are seated. Imagine retracking some of the problem sections of this ride, which is mostly contained to the second half of the ride. I would also do some reprofiling, allowing us to remove those pesky trim brakes that are right before the turnaround helix. You could also advertise this to the public, letting everyone know that Magnum is back in full force and smoother than ever. This wouldn't even have to be a huge investment either. I think you could get away with a decent retracking for around like $6 to $10 million, which would be considerably less than putting in a new B&M roller coaster. Morgan would be my choice of manufacturer. They did a great job recreating Phantom's Revenge, so I think they could work a little magic into this legendary hypercoaster, making it an attraction that will last for years to come. I know some of you are hoping that this ride gets removed, and at one point I was kind of in that club, but after taking a step back, I think there is something here worth saving, and a fantastic refurbishment would do the trick. Right now, the line for Magnum is almost a walk-on, so if guests were drawn back to this attraction, it would help with the congested lines that we see on Steel Vengeance, Valraven, Maverick, and Top Thrill Dragster. Magnum is a coaster that is meant to be marathoned, and a good retracking with its already excellent ride capacity would encourage this, no doubt. Finally, for the 2021 season, I would expand Cedar Point Shores. Never underestimate a good water park. If I want Cedar Point to be the multi-day destination that it is attempting to be, that water park is going to need more love. When you go to a water park, you want to be able to get on the slides as fast as possible, so I would open some more tube slides, maybe a couple body slides. I don't think you need to do anything super fancy. Honestly, I think people just want to keep moving when they're in the water park, unless you're just chilling by the wave pool or in the lazy river. Moving right along to 2022, my next focus would be to introduce a new, exciting dark ride experience that would be family friendly. Cedar Point is called the roller coaster capital of the world, but let's be real here. Six Flags Magic Mountain isn't going to give up their title of most coasters in one park anytime soon. If Cedar Point were to have 21 roller coasters, Six Flags would turn around and open 3 new kiddie coasters. I mean, it's Six Flags, and honestly, there is no benefit in competing with Magic Mountain. So yeah, I'm going to focus on a new, good dark ride attraction. I think building it in the main midway I would place it like on top of one of the existing buildings, kind of like how Ghostwood Estates is built over in the Midway at Kennywood. I don't really have a theming in mind for this ride, but a good shooting interactive attraction always seems to do well with a GP. I could also go with a haunted mansion type ride, maybe have it themed to like Valraven and Gatekeeper fighting. Not really sure. The theming is really not as important, but whatever it is, I want fantastic capacity. 2023 is when I would look at opening a new roller coaster. And what better place to build a new coaster than in the sort of unoccupied space of the former Shoot the Rapids ride? This new roller coaster would become a signature attraction for the Frontier Trail section of the park. I got the type of coaster nailed down to 2 options. First one would be a wooden roller coaster. I'm thinking of like a spaghetti layout by GCI, maybe even throwing in an inversion or 2. A wooden coaster always works great with a Frontier theme, plus the park currently only has 1 wooden coaster, which is Blue Streak. So they could use another good wooden coaster in the park. Of course, I think if Blue Streak was retract, which is what I'm planning on doing in 2021, would really revive it and make it into the fun family coaster that is meant to be. So if I don't feel the park needs another wooden coaster, my next pick is a flying coaster by B&M, maybe even Vekoma, but that really depends on how successful Fly is at Phantasialand whenever that opens. Now, we would obviously have to knock down the Sky Coaster that's currently in its lot, which is oddly named Professor Delbert's Frontier Fling. Yeah, that name will go, but I would somewhat recycle it for the flying coaster. Give it that steampunk type theming, not overly done. Think more like Wild Wild West, which I know is like why I think of that movie. But yeah, something like that. A crazy professor from the good old frontier days attempting to make a flying contraption. Now, obviously the flying coaster is going to be more expensive than the wooden coaster, and the one is more family friendly than the other, which is something I think Cedar Point needs to focus on. Cedar Point has some of the best roller coasters in the world. That's not changing. But if you want the whole family to have a great time, you gotta think about the whole family. But with that said, I think I'm still gonna go with a flying coaster. Cedar Point could use a good themed attraction, something to the levels of Maverick, or in the Cedar Fair chain like Copperhead Strike, which I'm hearing is the best Cedar Fair themed attraction. So, since I'm going with an expensive flying coaster in 2023, the following year is going to be a little bit more low-key, but not too low-key. 2024 would be mostly focused on Cedar Point Shores, which hopefully by now is being pretty successful in its own merit. I would add a new water coaster. Doesn't have to be super elaborate, but something that will grab the GP's eye. Parking is now going to be an issue in the back area of the peninsula, so an improved shuttle service that takes guests from the front of the park to the back of the park will be a must. I actually might consider closing one of the lots in the back of the park and start relying on my shuttle services for more of the water park. Maybe make it for like resort guests only. The main park would get a few updates here and there, nothing noteworthy. I might be convinced to add a new flat ride, but nothing etched in stone. Rolling on into our final year, 2025, I would commence Stage 2 of my ride improvements. Gatekeeper would get a cool-looking cave layer that the ride would dive into at the bottom of the dive drop. Nothing cheesy, but some good rock work with cool lighting and fog effects. Millennium Force has been developing in Rattle lately, and I'm not sure if it's the track or the trains. I'm thinking it's the trains, so I would get Millennium Force some new trains. The biggest update would be to Cedar Creek Mine Ride. And by update, I mean demolishment. I would give this ride a complete rehaul. The original track would be completely removed with a demolition starting in August of 2024. I would hire Gerstlauer to come in and create a new modern type mine ride experience. This would be something similar to Fire Chaser Express at Dollywood or Pegasus Express at Park Asterix. This ride would fully encompass the mine train experience and would be heavily themed. I want this to be a great family coaster addition, something that would really tie in the back section of the park. Okay, so beyond my 5-year plan, I would also start making some various changes throughout the park. Operational changes, you might say. Lockers would become free. I would try to introduce a better locker system near the roller coasters, like build some of them that are actually accessible in line. That way guests can still use their phone while in line, but have somewhere safe and free to place it. I wouldn't add this to every attraction, but would start introducing it to some of the rides that would have this capability. Roller coasters that are capable of having the cell phone pockets added to them would get them, which they actually are currently doing this year for Steel Vengeance. Finally, I would start up a membership plan similar to what Six Flags is doing throughout their chain. Of course, this would only be for Cedar Point, as I would only own this park, not the entire chain. Maybe that could be a topic for another video, but yeah, a good membership plan that would encourage guests to keep visiting, earning rewards, something to drive up the interest with my guests. Well, now you know what I would do if I owned Cedar Point. Please try to remember that I was trying to keep my planning to a more realistic level, not like adding a super mega roller coaster every year, which would be financially impossible unless I wanted to run the park into the ground in like 6 months. What would you do if you owned Cedar Point? Let me know in the comments. As always, stay tuned for more exciting content coming your way from X Scream Thrills.